Oh, welcome. It's so great to have you here for this 10,000 subscriber celebration here on YouTube. I'm with my good buddy, John Gurlow, who I'm going to introduce in a second. We've got so much to chat about. We're doing a giveaway. We've already got 12 people on. That's awesome. Drop a comment. Let us know where you're coming from. Where are you in the world? What bass are you playing? Anything like that. Any of that goodness. And the folks that we're having on here, I'm just so thrilled to have these people and to chat about the journey and all sorts of good stuff. We got links to learn more about John here and Paul Thompson and some other guests that we're going to have drop in. So just thank you so much for being here. And the giveaway, if you want to get entered, there's a link right there. You just click in that and enter your email address. And Nico, greetings from The Hague. Awesome. Beautiful. John, have you ever been to The Hague?
Well, no.
No? Okay. So yeah, let us know. We'll pop you up on the screen, and it's just going to be so great to chat with everybody. And so John needs no introduction. He has been my partner in crime, or however you want to phrase it, on the podcast for, hey, Johnny Bear, my former student. Hey, Johnny, what's up, sir? Great electronic musician. So great to see you. John, I'll turn this over to John in a second, but I started this crazy journey called Contrabass Conversations in 2007. And I had John as one of my first guests. All right. Hey, we got a Shen Willow Flatback SB200 from Charleston, South Carolina. That's awesome. Devin and Jim. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. So John discovered the podcast when I put it out, and we reconnected. We had done music festivals back in the day, and he was one of my early guests. And then his enthusiasm just sort of took this to the next level. John, I probably would have quit doing all this if I hadn't had you on, because you got excited and you seem to have worked with everybody in the bass world. I didn't have that kind of, my world was a little bit smaller than yours. And so John and I collaborated on, I don't know, was that like 30 interviews, John, or something? What did we do back in those early couple of years?
It must have been. We just sort of cranked them out one after another. Everything just sort of fell into place.
Yeah. And we're talking everybody from Ed Barker to Lawrence Hurst, who John studied with, and the list goes on and on. Owen Lee, over the years, the amount of people that have connected with these is just absolutely incredible. Some of these episodes have been listened to 50,000 times, 60,000 times. They continue to be listened to here 14 years later. And so, and this is all like early days of YouTube, and we've really gone a lot of different directions since then. But I think back, John, to those early days and to what we did, and it's just crazy. Do you have any idea where you thought this was going to go, John, when we got started?
No idea. But I think I remember that the recital showcase, I think, was the first recording that you put on the podcast.
Yep.
For some reason, and then we did. I would think I was the third guest, and it was just, and then we saw the sort of impact that it had, and people were talking about it, and we really enjoy the international nature. We were just chatting about this, how people would listen in France and Australia, but I think it was very new. It was very just kind of pure. I think our intentions were always to be very positive, be very educational. I think the goal was to help people, which I think is really important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for reminding me about that recital showcase. This is such a different era of the internet we're talking about, where these days you wouldn't think twice about putting a recital up, but this is in the days if you could only upload like 10 minutes to YouTube, and I had my Canon 2 megapixel camera at the time we were doing this, this like hilariously outdated footage. And so I really think of that work we did early on. You were a real kind of pioneer putting yourself out there like that. And it's just incredible to think in 14 years how much has changed.
Listen, we just used to use the phone. Remember, you was just calling the phone, and someone else would have to call in on the phone. But yeah, it was just fascinating. We have more interesting stories that say offline about this stuff. Google searches, and people were in trouble, and our names would pop up, and it was just how that would kind of bounce around. And the different But no, it was great. I love it. I love it. And it was just fun to reconnect with old friends and old teachers and just materials. I know we put a lot of materials out, like people's warm ups and scale packets, and just encouragement too. I think encouragement is very important. I think the older I get, just encouragement is really important. People with either taking auditions or had a recital, and to just have a place to go and have some quality material. We got into some of the we did the excerpts, which was a lot of fun. I think that was one of the things that got the most feedback. Though you think opera excerpts, orchestra excerpts.
Right. So some of these products, and by the way, Claire, I just was emailing back and forth with Claire. Thanks for tuning in from Australia. I know it's a crazy time of day there. And folks, if you want to drop a comment and say hi, we'd love to put you up on the screen here. It's just great to see all these folks jumping on here. And what John is talking about, these are these sort of multimedia resource packets, I guess we created, or packets might not be the wrong word, but John had the idea to take orchestral excerpts that he had recorded and then opera excerpts that he'd recorded. And we did we would talk about the excerpt and John would talk about his thoughts on that and everything. And then we would play the recording. Am I describing that correctly, John?
Yeah. And I think we always focused on how to practice. I think that was important too. Yeah, just how to work, that kind of thing. Like we tried to make it functional so that it wasn't just us talking about, oh, this is me playing, or this Jason does this up bow, whatever. It was really like from an educational standpoint of this. Somebody listening in their practice room saying, "Oh, I could get something out of this." Whether it's one or two things, or
and those still hold the test of time. I've still gotten comments here again, well over a decade later, with, "Oh, thank you, that opera," and I've gotten comments about both, but I continue to get comments about the opera excerpt one because that is kind of a world that people don't necessarily understand as much. It's a little bit more of a foreign world to many bass players, and so it's again, thank you for all these great ideas. Really, I dedicated my first book to you, or not, my second book to you, and then I it's everything I've done in the past 14 years. You've just been so instrumental, and we've reconnected so many times over the years. When I celebrated 10 years of podcasting back a few years ago, who did I contact? John. Who else? And so
that was fun. I remember that.
Yeah. And Rodrigo, hello, welcome. Great seeing people from all over the world. Rodrigo, wonderful bassist and composer, originally from Mexico. He's in Scandinavia right now, and we have some of his titles in the sheet music store. If you want to check that out, we got a link in the description too. And also, be sure to enter our giveaway for some Contrabass Conversations swag. My wife will thank me for getting some of these T-shirts out of our storage. So, yeah, great to see everybody here, and keep dropping those comments and saying hi.
Jason, I also think, and Don Green, that was really fun. Have Olympic sports psychologist. That was really neat.
Yeah, we were Don Green. Don Green has done a few podcasts since, but I don't think Don Green even knew what a podcast was when we introduced it. He was definitely the first podcast appearance. We were and you have taken this project, this self-discover journey through the bass world and associated projects in so many interesting directions. Like I benefited so much from Don Green's materials. If folks aren't familiar with can you maybe, John, describe who Don Green is?
Don Green is an Olympic sports psychologist. He was actually I don't know if the younger kids know, but Greg Louganis was a very famous diver. He was the one that actually hit his head in the Olympics once, and Don was right next to him there. But he was in the Olympic swimming. He did golf, professional golf, and then a couple other different sports arenas. And then he got involved in music, working with opera singers and musicians and some schools. And I studied with him privately in New York and then in some other places and stuff. And it was just fascinating. And it was just, a totally kind of interesting, just bringing the sports psychology world into the music world, high stress performance and that kind of stuff, auditions, concerts, opera singing, big time stuff. So that was really neat. And but I think, like you said before, back in the days when we first started doing this was such a genesis. This was a brand new technology. It was, most people almost didn't know how to even access it. It was through the website. And don't forget the blog too, the bass blog. That was sort of the outgrowth from the bass blog. I know the poor thing is like some library somewhere, but there's still 5,000 posts or whatever. And,
yeah,
your stories about how your bass exploded, and I remember once I was at a rehearsal and a girl said, "That you know that Jason he lives in Chicago. His base exploded on a bridge or whatever." Didn't know anything about the podcast or the blog. I said, "No, no, no."
Yeah, John's bringing up. I don't talk. I got started around 2005, just writing a bunch of stuff about the music industry and just trying to tell real stories about. And I did that because I had gotten frustrated. I love, by the way, here these are some of my students from my electronic music class from 10 years ago. These folks that I'm just going to pop up right here. These are just absolutely. I have so many great memories, guys. Thanks for popping on and celebrating this milestone. I've still got my Ableton push is right here. You can't see it on the camera, but so what John was bringing up, I was doing a lot of writing and brought some other authors on. We had this. It was a totally different era. This is like we'll go back like yet another era before podcasts when blogs were like the thing, and we had blog rings and all these things that nobody younger than me would probably have any memory of. But I sort of got this internet notoriety, maybe, in some sort of small version, writing these very realistic things about the music business. And John and I had originally connected maybe I don't remember when that was, John. It was around 2000, maybe. Was it Pacific Music Festival?
Yeah, festival, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And then we sort of reconnected around that time and have just remained in contact ever since.
Yeah,
but
and you used to talk about podcasts, and you were like that was one of your dreams. I remember you said, "Wow, this is new form." I remember you told me what a podcast was. I was like, "Oh, that sounds very interesting." I have no idea what that is.
And this is a totally different, like now these days we have these
True.
Smartphones and when you just capture them in the air as you're walking around the city. When I was thinking about doing a podcast, this was a hilarious era of that. Like I would have to download them to my laptop, sync my iPod video onto my computer and manually get all the podcasts. If I was out of town, I have to like drive up to the library and hop on their Wi-Fi. And it was just and then it was a very, pretty much everybody has at least heard the term podcasting these days. Well over 50% of the United States, at least, listens to podcasts regularly. But the question I was getting, John, and what you were so helpful in was people would say, "Who are you? What's a podcast? And why would I want to be on that?" And your enthusiasm answered those questions so well. And by the time you sort of sold the concept to and just sort of showed, I think you had a bigger vision for where this could go than I did, if that makes sense.
Really? No.
I think so. I think I understood podcasting, but my first few episodes are really sad. It's like me, like the first episode is me saying like, "Hey, let's do some stuff." And it's like, there's like an electric bass loop in the background. It doesn't make any sense. And then the second episode is me just like talking about the microphone I'm talking into. It's like the most boring thing ever. And then the third one is me reading the union paper audition announcements from like 2007. So not evergreen content. But then I started to have some friends on, people that would say yes when I said when I asked. And then we connected, and then you just took it to a whole new level, and through that, all of a sudden, people would say, "Oh, you're that guy who does the podcast," and that fast forward a year and a half or so into the work we're doing, and all of a sudden, that was the sort of thing that got the momentum going on all the community building work that I've been doing.
Wow. Yeah. And I think the secret sauce for this that we do, with just the focus was on bass too. I think.
Yes.
You had this. I don't mean this term in it could sound weird, but discipline. But the discipline is to say we're going to just do it. This could become strings. It could have become band. It could have become orchestra. But you always said that the riches are in the niches, which is true. Which I think I mean that in terms of focus, but just have it be the bass. And we always would talk about shop talk. Like when I was in college, the non-music people said, "You guys ever stop talking about music and teachers and trumpet stuff, bass and bows and rosin and stuff?" It's true. So people love shop talk. I mean, and it's fun because who else are you going to talk about that rock, with your fellow, people. But what's interesting too is that we got some of the principal players, some of the really famous teachers and stuff. And I think we asked good questions, and I think they got a sense that we were coming from the right place too. I think it could have been just a dud, but I think we really spent, we did our homework. We talked to them beforehand. get to know them. And
That's something I've always admired about your preparation style. So you really sort of thought about setting the stage, and the fact that you had personal connections with so many of these early guests. You were able to like, hey Owen, you talk about this, you talk about that. What do you think about, like I remember this wonderful Lawrence Hurst conversation, which remains, I think, our most downloaded episode to this day. I think it's something. It might be around 70,000 downloads, and I just popped up one of the talk about bass community. We got Barry Green here. Thanks for hopping on, Barry. And such a pivotal figure in the double bass world. And so great to see you here, Barry. And thanks for hanging out. It's really interesting. Reflecting back on some of that I have so many great memories. Max Dimoff, I remember connecting with him and talking through, and like you brought up some of these PDF packets we put together and things, and Max had put together this wonderful warm-up packet that and Max was thrilled to have us put it out in conjunction with this podcast. Another one of those things that's been downloaded some astonishing number of times. And we got Pittsburgh Bass Day joining us. Welcome. John's on the other side of the state, and we have a guest coming up in about 15 minutes, also from Pittsburgh, Paul Thompson, who has a wonderful YouTube channel. So we're going to hear from Paul in a little bit. So I love, and my business partner on all this, Trevor Jones, also from Pennsylvania. So I love that there's so much Pennsylvania love in Contrabass Conversations.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we also came from, I think, the deficiencies that we had, in school, just the lack of resources, lack of just stuff to play, lack of just as bass, different. My daughters take piano lessons. They have like 12 books. I always joke with the teacher and say, I only had one book when I was a bass player. I had a folder and like 2 books. I had my solo pieces, a couple solo pieces. I had a couple of books. It was just, but I always thirst for more, just stuff to play. I think that's what I always wanted, to find new stuff. I always wanted to do new things. I think we all do, but I think as a pianist, you have 25 million volumes for etudes and Mozart and Chopin, all this mazurkas and nocturnes and sonatas and stuff. So I think what we did is, I think a big influence on me was meeting some of these real kind of, excellent, people. I don't know. For me, that just was always a big influence. So I think we wanted to share that with other people through this medium. So.
And it's something we've had probably hundreds of hours of conversations about these topics, John, like off the podcast, let alone on the podcast. But I think that you've had this sort of spirit of just connecting people and giving resources and giving knowledge out. And I think the work that we were doing on some of these early projects was sort of anticipated what we're seeing now. And as we get into talk about YouTube and that sort of thing, I think, where do you turn to if you want to learn anything these days? Me, it's YouTube, before about anything. But some of these resources that we put, especially if we're talking about the way that you and I were trained in a kind of more traditional classical music background, there's a bit of scarcity that's built into that model. There are only X number of jobs. There are only X number of opportunities. How many hours have we talked about this, John? Probably
right.
100 at least.
True. Yeah, and other disciplines also. Yeah, that's just
of course.
The way that works.
Yeah. And so it's just I think that, and the fact that so many people have connected with these over the years, I just sort of think speaks to the evergreen nature of some of these projects that we've worked on.
Right. And the feedback that people are able to get feedback. They were emailing you, and I think that was always cool to hear that it was making an impact. I think, I think we always want to make an impact. I think, I mean, even if it's small, I've learned that even a small impact is a big deal. You could buy someone a cup of coffee. It's like it could change the course of their whole day. You say one little thing, one little aha moment. They're struggling with a work, their solo piece, whatever they're doing. One little idea. Wow, holy moly! I could just practice this way, And then I always felt like nobody really taught anybody how to really practice well. I think sort of. I think some of the best people get it naturally. Like same thing in sports. Like Larry Bird or whatever, they know how to. They just know what to do. I mean, naturally, but and for some reason, even in classes, like I mean, it's just interesting. I think we talked a lot about I just thinking people really soak that up. That's just very good to hear as a musician. I think, or if you play whatever, basketball, golf, same thing, Golf Digest, whatever. Don used to write for some articles and go. It's the same thing. They're out on the driving range. It's like the different grips and stuff. I mean, we're always kind of trying to just push ahead, do different things and stuff.
Yeah,
this is awesome, man. I'm just pumped up. I'm excited.
Well,
Everything starts with the bass, like it says. Like Mike Shank works on my bass. He's a wonderful guy. He made my bass sound amazing. He said, it all comes down to the bass section. The bass section determines the orchestra. Period.
It does. I'll tell you a great story, John. You'll relate to this. So we're rehearsing. So I'm playing San Francisco Symphony this week. There was a mix up with the schedule, and the rehearsal rotation got mixed up. And the first bass player, the principal bass player, was rotated off one of the pieces. So he was still headed to the hall, and they were about to start the rehearsal. The conductor comes out, and she says, "Principal bass isn't here. We can't start." and it's like, and the other people in the bass section were like, "That's true. Bass is important." And
there's a certain opera company where the conductor had an interesting exchange. I'll put it that way in the middle of a performance. But he said, no, it's all good. But he said the same thing to me. He said, "Well, you can't have the opera without the principal bass. I mean, it's a lot of pressure."
Well, I remember playing in this wonderful chamber orchestra that you and I have both played in, the Iris Orchestra in Memphis, Tennessee. Having a conversation with the pianist for Josh. We both know Josh too, right? And we were just talking about different sections and this and that, and then like the bass section came up, and Josh is like, "You can't mess around with the bass section. If you don't have that bass section dialed in, nothing's going to happen." And so,
it's true. It's the foundation. The left hand of the piano. I know. It's true. So but that's how this is all going to come back too. That's how this industry comes back. It's from the basses.
Yeah.
So no pressure, everybody. The basses. The bass is responsible for everything. I think. But But I think it's structure. I think it's like a building. It's like you build a building. You have to build the foundation first. You don't have you have the best building in the world. You don't have a strong foundation. The building's going to fall.
Yeah. I agree. And Barry agreed. Giving love to Pennsylvania folks. Great. Go Bengals. And we got Celito de Jesus here too. Celito has a great YouTube channel called Playing Double Bass, and runs the Rabath Institute Los Angeles. If you haven't checked out the work she's doing, Rabath Institute LA, I believe is the website. I'll look that up and put that in the chat here. But she's doing great work, and she's got a bunch of cool projects that coming soon. I'll just leave it at that. So it's just so great to see all these people, and like the bass world. There's something particular there. I've thought for so many years about this, and John, you and I have talked about this, but there's something particularly special about bass community, and you see that at conventions, you see that in the bass section, and just the camaraderie, and whether it's the instrument or the supportive nature of much of what we do. I'm not sure of what it is, but if you're the saying that you hear so often is violinists have competitions, bass players have conventions. And I think that there's that really says a lot, but there's this and you were bringing up geeking out on things, John. This week at the San Francisco Symphony, we pulled out about 9 different types of mutes, and we're putting them on one player's bass. And we're like, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" And these are players at the top of their game. They've been playing for decades, and they're still curious about that. How does a snakewood mute differ from an ebony mute versus a leather mute versus a rubber mute? And everybody's standing around really curious. We're on break. We could go get a coffee, but no, we're standing around talking about mutes. That says something about the bass community.
Well, I think there's also an element of like common struggle. I mean, you have to carry the bass around. You have your stand. You have your not stand. I mean, your stool. You're bumping into the door. It's all kind of awkward. You could walk into a hotel. Someone asked me once, "Do you play that?" I remember that. That was unbelievable. Like, what is it? A piece of furniture? Do you play that? We used to joke about that. I think it was in the Pittsburgh Opera. I spent Pittsburgh Opera. But I was walking rehearsal one day, and someone asked me that. I said, "Do you play that?" So I walk into the pit before. I said, every single person in the orchestra. I said, "Someone just asked me that. Do I play this? What do you mean? Do I play it? What is it? Furniture? Was it like smuggling? I'm like smuggling contraband and this big thing, the wheel. It's like so we have. I think the common struggle also helps with that sort of community and brotherhood and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just There's nothing wrong with you have a small instrument or whatever you pop in your pocket or whatever, but I
It's
think
a
it's
different.
fun. I mean, I don't want I don't mean to say it, awkward is a weird word, but it's so interesting that you walk around with this gigantic instrument and you get I always thought that was a good sort of I always wanted to make that like an advertisement for the symphony. Like your bass walks down the street, everybody's staring at you. They're kind of like, what with a wheel. Then someone in Princeton once asked me about if I ever wanted to get a Segway. I probably missed that as an invention. They wanted to like put a little motorized wheel on the bottom of the bass, just like whipping around on a Segway. But I think but I think you choose the instrument because you like the sound. I see amazing seeing the little kids with that. They'll pick a lower sounding instrument because you're just sort of and still with the symphony. I know when you look out of the audience, people love to watch the basses. It's just very kind of unique. I always would like to play my C string just as loud as possible. It's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
If someone's walking by me in the audience, they always kind of stop, turn around. What the heck is that? That's always a good way to kind of torture a conductor, too. I've done that in my past a couple of times. Just right in the middle of rehearsal, when everything's really quiet, you could just play as loud as possible.
Well, it's those simple pleasures that keep you coming back, though. That's the thing that amazes me about the players at the height of their profession. Some of the best players. It's just those things, the sound of an open C string, the sound of an open A string, just the resonant qualities, just that connection in your body that you get. It's remarkable.
And I think it's the evolution too. Like, I mean, if this was violin or piano, they've already been very, very advanced for a long time. I mean, we still sort of grew up as a younger person with there's not that many recordings, not that many songs to play, like that kind of stuff. I mean, as you would go to every time you go to a library and music store, it's all the same stuff. Which is fine or whatever, but so I think we've kind of fed into that. That's what I mean. I think I think subconsciously with the podcast was let's just put out as much new stuff for people, and I think that's why people the oxygen, they just suck that up. It's just you can't get enough of that stuff. There's new scales and books and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and the connection we were chatting before we hit live here, John and I. But there's I wish I could remember his name, but there's a longtime listener that has written to me a couple times. He said like, "Greetings from the jungles of Indonesia." Oh, yeah. He's like working. I think he's in the military or involved in some capacity, and he said like, I'm listening to you as I'm riding around on my Humvee or whatever, but I used to listen to you from the plains of Kazakhstan. And I just like the image of somebody, and this is back 2008, 2009, someone like with their chunky iPod with their earbuds in, like listening to us talk to Lawrence Hurst or whatever. I just love. And hey, just real quick, drop down community greetings from Bulgaria. I can't wait to visit Bulgaria one of these days. I love that we're connecting across the world like that. I'm out here in San Francisco. John is on the East Coast, where we got people from Australia and Bulgaria in every time zone. And we got a great comment here. Basses are more of a family than just a group of musicians. Violins have enemies, joking enemies with each other. Basses have families and friendships. Yeah, we're a bass family. And someone that on the call here, Barry Green. Again, I'll bring up Barry since he's here. Barry is one of the OG bass community organizers and has been doing this for so many years, and he gets such satisfaction out of it to this day. And if you haven't had the chance to get to congregate as a bass player, and as we claw our way out of this hopefully ending pandemic one of these days, and you get back to doing more bass festivals, it is so great. I had a long year of making YouTube videos by myself and slowly losing my mind, and when it finally started to play more gigs and have that come back, it's been really a great feeling. One more comment here. Thanks, Nico. Bass players are modest people in general who just want to enjoy and do their thing and have fun. I think that's true.
That's right. Like to help people. That's right. Help other musicians. Yeah. And it'll all come back. Everybody just keep the faith with all this stuff. All you have to do is play music. So at least it doesn't go out of style, obviously.
Well, the first note I played, so I played a bass quartet in March 2020, and then my bass went and parked in the corner there. It's at the symphony right now, but normally it's in the corner here. And for my videos, and the first note I played was actually with another human being was at Celito's LA Roboth Institute, Los Angeles in June, and it was like riding a bike. I got out and I was instantly playing a bass quartet with David Young, Ted Botsford, and Celito, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And thanks for all these great comments, folks, coming in, all the congrats. We really appreciate it. If you haven't entered the giveaway, the link is in the description to this video. Links to the folks we're talking to here. My John Grillo, who has been downloaded, I haven't counted recently, but it's got to be around 1 million times on the podcast alone.
Wow.
And over the years, I mean, the spread that the work that we've done together and that you inspired is just absolutely incredible. And I just can't thank you so much. And we have here joining us, Paul Thompson. Paul, thank you so much for being a part of this. John, it's been so fun hanging out. I can't thank you enough. Two folks from Pennsylvania. Paul, do a quick intro if you haven't met. Paul, John Grillo is in the Princeton Symphony. He was my co-host and continues to be my co-host on the podcast for so many episodes. And John, Paul is a fabulous educator and bassist in Pittsburgh and is absolutely crushing it on YouTube. The next time you go down a YouTube rabbit hole, watch some of his videos. Will Lee shared out one of his videos that I don't know how many, it's probably well over 100,000 views at this time, Paul, but welcome, Paul. It's so great to have you here.
Wow, wonderful.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you, John.
Yeah,
I've heard some of the podcasts, so I'm the biggest Contrabass Conversations fanboy you're ever going to meet. So I'm a huge fan. It's great to meet you.
Wonderful. Likewise. That's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Yeah. But Jason, so yeah, I'm going to have to sign off here, but Paul, it's great to meet you. Have a great session today. No, it's just been an honor and a blessing to just be part of this whole thing.
We'll do it again soon, John.
Next year's 15 years, so it's going to be 15 years. So.
Yep, I know.
Everybody out there, keep the faith, keep going, keep at it. Yeah, and this is just awesome. And blessings to everybody, and have a good day. Peace.
Thanks, John.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we got Pittsburgh Bass Day actually chiming in here. Speaking of Pittsburgh bassists, they're now a 501c3, and Paul Thompson has been a clinician the last 2 years. Very cool. You couldn't ask for a better clinician. And Paul, I just appreciate so much you carving out some time. We did an interview for the podcast, like, I don't know, sometime last year. And I remember thinking, like, I want to collaborate with Paul somehow. And I just, and then I was watching that subscriber count tick up, and I thought, like, maybe Paul would be down for having a quick hang and kind of talking like John and I were riffing on the beginning of all this Contrabass Conversations content and where we've got it. And then like YouTube, about the last year and a half or so, has been a bigger thing for me. And I have just continued to be inspired by what you do. And folks, if you haven't checked out that, Paul has so many great videos, but if you haven't checked out this video where you roll, can you describe that video where you roll your bass up and you ask people questions, Paul?
Well, that was a concept that I had, and I just didn't have an opportunity to do it, mostly because of the pandemic. I had this idea because, and I'm sure we've all gone through this, when you're kind of rolling your bass somewhere to play or rehearse, and you get these really weird stares, and you hear the weirdest comments. People call it a guitar and a cello. And so I thought, what if I just walked into a big public setting and stopped people and just randomly ask them 3 questions. What do you think this is? What kind of sound do you think it makes? And can you name someone who plays this instrument? I thought I'd get a lot of great answers, and I ended up it was a lot of fun. And so I want to do it in different places now. Ideally, like, I'd love to do it at a Steeler game. That would be awesome. But I'm thinking of big public gatherings where I can just go with my bass and, kind of stop people on the street and see what they have to say, because we hear the funniest stuff. So I thought, I'm going to put this on video.
It's so great. And Adam Booker just chimed in with a comment here. Is that a cello? Yes.
Yeah.
we have heard that one a bit too. But like, just you're so charming with the way that you present that with the people outside. It's so fun. And I've gotten so inspired by what you do. I think that and I just love the approach you're taking to storytelling on YouTube. You're a total natural at what you're doing, and I can't wait to see where you go with this. We talked about this for the podcast last year, but like, when did the idea come to you to get this channel going?
It happened the year before everything went down. So really, 2019, I said, I'm going to do this. I bought a camera, and I kind of sat on it for a while, and I kind of did a screen test in 2020, January of 2020. And then everything happened, and it kind of fell in my lap, like, now's the time. So, I mean, I've been thinking about it. I've been a fan. There's so many great people that do it, like the big YouTubers like Adam Neely and Rick Beato, and they have such interesting channels. And I thought that I think I have my own story. I think I have my own slant because I never wanted to copy anybody. I thought I have a different kind of thing that I can present. So it just made it the perfect opportunity, and we weren't gigging, and I slowly started learning how to do it. So I'm still working on it. As I'm sure you go through this, every video I seem to learn something new. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know I could do that transition, or oh, I can make my thumbnail do this. Every single video I learned something new. So it's really cool.
Yeah, well, I have the exact same experience, and I have been, I don't know why I picked this. I've had a YouTube channel for forever that I would refer to lovingly as my garbage fire of content. It was like all this random stuff, and I had some videos that did exceptionally well, but none of them featured me, and none of them were like the stuff I'm doing now. So I put out this video. I'm trying not to do these anymore because, but I put out this one comparing some camera gear that's done exceptionally well, and nobody seen that video would ever want to watch anything else I do. So I get, it's unlikely. But so I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've started to realize, the thing limiting me is just my imagination and my, just experimenting and A/B testing. And so I've really tried to, and I thought to myself, I don't know why I picked this metric. I thought if I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to start really taking it seriously. And I think we've just about doubled the subscribership for this channel, like in the last year and a half. But I had done like no thought whatsoever until probably when March 2020, I all of a sudden had a lot more time on my hands. And so, but it's interesting to this day, I'm trying to, I'd love to geek out with you a little bit because we haven't talked a little bit and you've done a lot, but how does an idea turn into something finished on YouTube? I know that's a big question, but what do you have what's your workflow like? Do you have 20 ideas on the hopper? Do you script beforehand? All those sort of nerdy things. What do you do?
Oh, totally. So my ideas, I'm always brainstorming. And if I get an idea, I write it down immediately. So it goes into a pile of about, I want to say maybe 60, 70 things. And I check them off when I do them. But I have a big pile of ideas. And then when I get a big inspiration for something, then that becomes, okay, I got to do this one. I got to do this one. And sometimes it can be like my last video, I did a video on jazz slang that I thought could be really funny because I heard a musician use a slang term on a gig. He said, oh, I got money out on the street, and something went ding, I can do this. We're gigging again. I can film people giving me their words and stuff. And so that became the pursuit. And sometimes I'll have an idea and it'll just sit on the back burner for a long period of time. I do script everything. Mm-hmm. I've done a couple of things where I didn't script, and it was just, for me, the way that I operate, it was a nightmare. It was just take. This isn't working at all. I have to write something down, and I still don't have like a teleprompter. Mm-hmm. I have to write it down, 2 sentences at a time and memorize it, and then try to do a take. It's really awful, but I script everything. So I probably have 3 videos. I have 3 full scripts that I haven't even shot. But what happens is other ideas come in. I had a student, the video before, I did a video on turnarounds. I was working with a really talented student at Duquesne, and nobody had ever really taught her this before. And I thought, I should put this on the channel. Like, everybody should, I feel like this is something you should know, working on turnarounds and how to approach them and the way that I think about them. I thought I could help people. So sometimes another idea will kind of leapfrog, as far as that goes. But I do have a bunch of ideas, and I keep them in a pile. And sometimes they go as far as being scripted, and I don't quite get to shoot them because I get another idea for something. And as you know, it's so time consuming. It's very, very, for me, the editing process, and if there's sheet music involved, and sound, I'm recording sound separately on some of my playing videos, and it's just, there's so much involved. And if I know I have a day, I can shoot towards that day, as far as knowing I'm going to be in front of the computer editing and stuff like that. But yeah, that, to answer your question, I kind of have a big pile, but if I think an idea is going to be a home run, then I'll that one will jump to the front of the line.
Yeah, totally. I made this realization recently that there are 60-hour ideas and there are 2-hour ideas, and I have to sort of decide what I want my life to look like. I shot one video that I was like, why did I think that this would be a good idea? I went through, and it's a wonderful book. If Salito's still on the call, it's Salito de Jesus and Patrick Nair collaborated to do these wonderful bass duets. And so what I decided to do was play through parts 1 and 2, sync them up, have the sheet music visible in like a cool shot of the camera. And so then like the individual files for this, I think there were like 24 duet, like it was like hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. And I thought like, that was well over a full 40-hour work week. And so and then the next video I shot, it was like, oh, just me riffing. And so it depends on what, but yeah, it's so interesting. I draw inspiration from so many people, including you. I watch your videos and I saw the jazz slang and like I have this app I use called Notion where I keep my ideas in. And I think I put down a few like classical related kind of ideas. And I have this unfortunate habit. I have a series of folders. And it's like raw footage, processed, and then I have one called Video Graveyard. It's where like I work on a video and I'm just like, this is trash, into the graveyard it goes. Do you have anything like that? Or do your ideas, once you get going, do you finish it no matter what?
Oh yeah, well, when I start doing a video, I gotta finish it, and part of it is because I've kind of the YouTube algorithm is not very forgiving as far as taking a couple of weeks off, and I had two big gaps this year where I took a month off. I did a Joni Mitchell video. I did a bass video about one of her albums. And that was so tiresome. It was so taxing that I was like, I'm just going to take some time off. And then in the summer, when the gigs came back, like en masse, I kind of took a break and focused on that. And the algorithm is just like, so I'm trying to get myself back into the algorithm at this point. But I used to shoot the videos, and we talked about the Night Fly, the big video that I did for the Donald Fagen record, and I would throw away everything. I would just pitch everything, every little piece when it got edited, right to the trash can. And somewhere about, I want to say maybe 6-7 months ago, I started needing stuff that I'd shot before. And I was like, why am I doing this? I'm going to go buy a big hard drive and save everything that I shoot, everything I record, everything I shoot, no matter what, every piece of everything gets saved in case I need to refer to it later. But I used to just, in true artistic fashion, kind of do it and then kind of ball it up and throw it away. But I am saving things now, but I haven't gotten to the process where I have a video graveyard. Although there are definitely some videos on my channel that I totally believe belong in a video graveyard. Like when I look at them now, I'm like, oh, what was I thinking there? But I mean, that's part of the process. That's not every hit's going to be a home run.
Totally. And Adam Book actually chimed in and said, I think Tales from the Video Graveyard could be pretty interesting. Actually, we got a good question here from Nico. He said Dave Holland has said at the Dutch Double Bass Festival, that creativity should be part of your practice routine. I agree. How does that work into your practice routine, Paul?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. There's something that I do with my students where I call it free play. That's just one kind of creativity you can do where you're playing anything. And sometimes I'll bring my bass and we'll play anything together. And I'll ask them about what they're listening to, what they were trying to go for. I think you should always reserve time to try to play something creative and unexpected, whether sometimes that might be me taking my trumpet out because I was a trumpet player all through high school. I think Jaco Pastorius said, there's a quote where he said, you should try to learn something new about music every day. For some people, it's playing a different instrument. Some people, it's playing a different style of instrument or a style of music, that you would never play. For some people, it's writing when they don't write or playing free. I try to do something different every chance that I can, every practice session. And the simplest thing I can think of is just playing free and not noodling. I mean, really playing something and seeing where it leads you. I think that's an important part of the process of being a musician, is just being able to create something.
Yeah, totally. I love people that who putting out cool stuff like you're doing. I love who else they follow along with. And so you mentioned Adam Neely and Rick Beato, two of my favorites too. I follow a lot of people in the camera world. I follow a lot of bigger YouTubers, and I follow all sorts of people. Who else that people might not expect, or just who else do you click the thumbnail on pretty frequently?
Oh my
Music
gosh.
or not?
Well, I'm very, my YouTube taste is crazy. It's really crazy. I want to say that because of you, I follow Bobby Sharman, and he's fantastic. I really like his stuff. He's a bass player in Nebraska, is it?
Yep, exactly. Omaha.
He's fantastic. I really enjoy him. But I also, I mean, some of the stuff you would think it's crazy. I like football. So there's a football related thing that I follow called That's Good Sports. It's kind of humor in football. I really like, this is totally nuts. There's an American guy living in Japan who's a surfer. He's a blonde guy, really popular channel, Eric Surf 6. And basically he does this food vlog where he's like, okay, I'm going in to try this noodle soup out of a vending machine. Like, he'll eat crazy foods. I'm going to this sushi, this sushi bar that rotates, and it's basically a vlog of him trying all these different crazy Japanese foods. I live for that channel. It's so good. What else? I mean, it depends on my interests at the time. Your stuff always, I mean, you got to know this. Anytime I see your thumbnails come up, I'm going to click on it because it's amazing.
Right back at you, Paul.
Stuff. And I haven't, fortunately, I haven't bought a set of perpetuals yet, because I watched that video like twice, and I'm like trying to hold myself back from putting perpetuals on my bass. But yeah, I mean, it's like everybody else, if something catches my eye right now, I'm binging The Sopranos because I've never seen The Sopranos. So sometimes in my free time, if I come on YouTube, I'll see something about The Sopranos, and I'll try to click on that. I tend to like people who are very straightforward and explain themselves well. There doesn't have to be a lot of flash. There doesn't have to be a lot of production, and we know that's really popular on YouTube. I like people who are very honest. People who know how to look at the camera or sound good when they're talking and clear about what they say. So it could be a variety of topics. I'm very all over the place. There's also a guy, so I grew up loving horror movies.
Yeah.
Love horror movies. And I think this guy's in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure if he is, because he said some things in his videos, but he's got like probably 40,000 subs. His name is The Horror Geek. And he picks a horror movie each week. It comes out every Wednesday. He picks a horror movie and basically does like commentary over the parts, and it's really funny, and he gives it a rating, like that kind of stuff. Like, I'm a total sucker for that. I'm a total sucker for kind of recap culture, as it's called. And also, just like most musicians, sometimes I'll see my favorite musicians. Oh, there's a Pat Metheny live thing I've never seen. Let me watch this. Like YouTube, for those of us in a certain age bracket, YouTube was the holy grail, and it still is, for seeing live performances that you never got a chance to see before. I think young people will never know how good they have it right now, because when I was growing up, you had to wait a year and a half for the one guy to get that Miles Davis quintet black and white video, and 30 of us will go over this guy's house and watch it on VHS. Now everything is just right up on YouTube, and the accessibility of live music, I will say, don't take it for granted. There's so much great live performance on YouTube that you got to take advantage of it.
It's crazy, right? Because I think about we're roughly the same vintage, Paul. I think it's so like I did not have all these devices, coming up, and it's just it's crazy to try to wrap your head around. And I love, folks. Thank you so much for joining us from all over the world. We got Ernest from Honolulu. I got married in Hawaii. Can't wait to get back there. And I think we've hit a large percentage of the world on this. So I really appreciate it, folks. If you wanna get into the giveaway giveaway for Contra-Base Conversations swag. Enter that link. And Paul, did I ever send you a Contra-Base Conversations t-shirt? I don't think I did. Because it was like the height of the pandemic. I quit. All right, headed your.
I would love one.
Well, it would have been. Yeah, I just got out of the habit in 2020, but okay, that's coming your way too. But I follow, like you, I follow people from all over the place, and I just love seeing how people tell stories in different ways and how people capture attention. And I get inspiration. I mean, I'm really into a lot of cooking channels, and one of my favorite people is Adam Ragusia. So Adam, I'll tell his story briefly just because it's an interesting tale. He was a composition major at Indiana University, fell into like the campus radio and then just kind of the NPR world and became a producer, and then eventually got hired at Macon, Georgia, whatever the school is down there, to teach journalism or some part of journalism. Started making YouTube videos because he was trying to learn how to do video production to teach his students. And one of his videos randomly popped off like crazy. It was a New York style pizza video that got like 13 million views almost. And so he sort of had this moment, and he'd done enough in his life to sort of realize sometimes you get a moment and there's a flat, and he just said, I'm going to go all in. And so for like a year, he basically worked 2 jobs. He did YouTube full-time and the university full-time, ended up making more on YouTube than the university, and just saw the path ahead. And it's really interesting because he's got this combination of journalist background, music background, and then all through food. And so that hits so many different bells. I've been really trying to get intentional about getting better at, I look at what I do. You probably do the same thing. And I look at like what hits and what doesn't, and what did I do differently? Because the factor is almost always me. It's not like, I'll do a topic and I think this topic should work, but people don't seem to click. Or then it's like, oh, that seemed to click. And so I've been taking a lot of inspiration from some really big YouTubers like Mr. Beast. And I'm really into this show, the Colin and Samir show, which is just long form interviews with creatives. And I've been trying to get really intentional. I don't know if you've tried this, Paul, but the advice I've heard a lot is create your title and thumbnail before you ever film a bit of the video. And I'd always heard this. I never did that. And I've done that for the last few videos, and they've done better than my last video. So I've tried to make the thumbnail and then make the first few seconds of the video like be what you'd expect when you click on that thumbnail. And so I'm just like, it's like you were talking about, it's like you learn from every video, right? So I actually have a question in here somewhere. like as you're like working on all this stuff and putting out, how often do you go in and like look at numbers and stuff like that? Because I can get obsessed with things like that. Like, do you go into your analytics and try to figure things out a lot, or is it like once in a while, or do you just kind of keep moving forward? And
I think it depends on how much I care about the video. And I have this unique thing that's happened to me. I don't know if there's this weird thing that happens. The videos I care the most about tend to not be the ones that are successful. And the videos that I'm like, okay, let me just do this and put this up. All of a sudden, what's happening? Why is everybody into this? This took 4 hours to do, but usually the ones that I care about and I get excited about, and I'm like, I think this one could have legs. Then I'm looking at my analytics. My last video, the jazz slang video, I changed the thumbnail 4 times in the first 2 days because I was looking at my click-through rate, and I saw it go down, 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 and I went, oh no. Let me try this. Let me try this color. Let me try this picture. And so the key for me is to stop. I got to stop caring so much about that when it happens. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I really enjoy it. And I feel like I have a story to tell. I'm not trying to become Mr. Beast, who is awesome. By the way, have you seen his Squid Game video?
Yeah, I watched it a couple nights ago. Yeah, it's incredible.
That was amazing how he pulled that off. But I'm doing it for fun right now. I'm learning along the way. Hopefully I'm getting better. I want it to be something really quality. And so I try not to look at my analytics too much. But if I really care about something, unfortunately, I find myself peeking on my cell phone. You go into the YouTube Studio app and you're like, okay, what are the views on this? What's the average time viewed? So it's almost like playing music, though. It's almost like especially with jazz, kind of the more you care about it, the less successful you are at it. You have to just let it come out. It's like, there it is, and I'm not gonna, deal with it. I'm not going to obsess over it as much,
Yeah, I know. If I'm not careful, my YouTube analytics, it becomes like my version of checking Twitter. I'm like clicking far too often. I've got a good comment here from Ryan Chamberlain. He said, I have a shirt from Adam Raguccio that has summoned forth the upside down bear, which is very good shirt. I'd actually the way I've been doing things these days is I try to, when I actually get all my camera gear out, I try to film like 4 videos at once, like ideas for a whole bunch. So if folks notice me wearing the same shirt and everything, I actually own more than one shirt. It's just I sit down, I try to do as much of my life in batches as possible. So I that seems to work well for me. And then inevitably one of those ideas doesn't go anywhere and into the graveyard it goes. But that seems to be my my rhythm. Hey, Paul, here's another question I wanted to ask you. Have you been recognized from YouTube walking around in Pittsburgh or anywhere?
There are people who are musicians. So I teach at a couple of colleges, and what I'll find out is that there are students who will know who I am and not say anything to me. But I haven't been recognized. But I do have a funny story along that line. My wife and I, as soon as school ended last year in June, we went to the beach immediately. Because we were kind of half online, and then the last few months we were in person. It was really stressful, and there weren't really a lot of gigs at that point. So we got in the car, we got a room, and we drove out to the beach in New Jersey. And we were in Cape May, and they have kind of this thoroughfare where people kind of hang out after they've been on the beach that has shops and restaurants and things and outdoor things. And so we went to this Italian restaurant, and my wife is a, kind of a wine connoisseur. It was BYOB, and we didn't get wine. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to go get a bottle of wine. I'm going to run down. It's right down, probably 2 blocks." So I'm sitting at the table. She comes back. She tells me, "I saw a guy with a Nightfly shirt on." And I said, "Did you see my husband's video?" And I made him open YouTube on his phone. And I showed him your video. And I said, "Go down and tell my husband, it's a great video. You got to see it. You got to see this video." So that was as close as I came with a brush. As far as outside of YouTube and being, that kind of recognition. But I haven't been recognized as far as I know.
Well, the next bass event you'll be at, you absolutely will by a large number of people. I've been recognized a few times since things have opened up here in San Francisco. I was playing San Francisco Symphony a couple weeks ago, and this young woman comes walking up to the stage and is just staring at me. This is on break, and I think like, look at me. And she calls me over. I'm like, "Hey," she's like, "I know you from YouTube." I use it. And then you'll love this. It kind of ties into the whole storytelling thing we've been talking about. I was hanging out in my neighborhood at a local cafe, and a guy walks by and he says, "Are you the bass player on YouTube?" And I'm like, I do. And it turns out he's also a bass player, but his day job, well, he is an NBC Bay Area reporter. And for 20 some years, I think he's been, Joe Rosado Jr. is his name. And he's like reports on all sorts of things, the arts. And so, of course, guess who's going to be on my podcast in a few weeks? I thought, like, if I get the chance to sit down with a professional reporter and like talk storytelling? And it was absolutely fascinating to talk to him. And I actually brought up that video graveyard. I was like, "Joe, do you have anything like that?" He's like, "No, everything goes live. Everything gets finished," just like you, Paul. So I need to rethink my process. But
that is amazing. Well, you've been a celebrity to me for a long, since way before YouTube. I've been I can't tell you how I've been a huge fan of Contrabass Conversations. And if you send me a t-shirt, I will send you a video of me playing the theme on my bass. Because that's what I wanted to do when we had our interview before. I wanted to be clever and just have my bass out and start playing the theme from Contrabass. Because I know, like, that's, in my head, you know?
I love that so much. All right. Well, that's on its way to you. I really appreciate it. And folks, if you the one last time before we close out here, if you haven't entered the giveaway, you got we'll close it down and we'll give you 30 minutes. How about that? And we'll do the drawing and announce everybody next week. And hopefully this is the first of many. I wanted to have John on because he's been with me since the beginning, and we talked, Paul, the first part, like how the blog kind of evolved into the podcast, and we started doing more video, and I just see more of this for the future. And I'm curious, like, what do you, maybe we can close out with, like, what do you see for the future of what you're doing as you're getting out there? I can't wait to see you at a Steelers game with the bass. Like what, like, do you have any thoughts on what, on upcoming projects or where you see this being? Because you obviously take it seriously, and you do such a wonderful job, and it obviously resonates with so many people. So do you have any thoughts about where you're going with the content creator work that you do?
Well, obviously the educational aspect to me is very important, and that's what's pushing me. That's going to be a really common thread moving forward. Things that I see students do in real time or that they need help with often become videos right away. But I definitely want to take part in more live casting like you're doing now. I did one. So when I hit 5,000, I gave away an olive G string, which was a lot of fun. And my wife helped me out with that. Moving forward, I'd like to do that a little more. I would love to do some whiteboard things as well. That's something that's been on my mind, kind of real live teaching. Hey, this is how I do this. So that's a direction I want to move in addition to keep on doing what I'm doing, and just discovering things and see what people think of them.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh in the spring, and I want to carve out a little extra time, and maybe we have collab number 1 here on the celebration. We can have maybe an in-person collab. I would absolutely love that, and I can't wait to send you that swag. And I've got 2 brief, very short things that we'll close out with here. A couple other YouTubers sent me some congrats. People doing cool things. Valentina Ciardelli from Italy, wonderful. Frank Zappa Woman is her channel. Oh, by the way, I've got Paul's YouTube channel linked up in the description of this video. I've got John's info, and then both everything else here. So just check that. And so let's just real quick play Valentina.
Here's Valentina. I want to say congratulations to Contrabass Conversation channel to achieve the 10K subscribers. You deserve it, guys. It's just amazing. So keep up the good work, and I can't wait to see the next interview, the next podcast, and everything. Thank you so much.
And she's been on the show several times. And then I couldn't wrap it up without my friend and colleague and buddy, Jeff Chalmers, Discover Double Bass, and the work he does. So here's a quick thanks from Jeff. I would have had him on live, but it's like 11 p.m. or something where he's at, so it's a bit late.
It's Jeff here. I'm just wanting to jump in and congratulate you for your 10,000 subscribers over on the Contrabass Conversations YouTube channel. I've been a big fan of Contrabass Conversations for years. I remember vividly checking out the early episodes, the one with Antonio Bath, one with Leon Bosch that you did many years ago, and I just couldn't believe it. And this was probably around, I don't know, 2007 or something like this. And I was so excited to see that it was a double bass podcast that I could geek out and learn about my double bass heroes. And you do such a good job. You do such a good job at, uniting the community and really getting everybody excited and sharing knowledge. And it's just an incredible resource that you've built. So, congratulations to yourself and to everybody else in the team that's working with you on this. And here's to the next 10,000 and more.
Thank you, Jeff. And Paul, you and I are both on this journey, and I can't wait to see you hit 10K and both of us keep going. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us. And I just want to thank everybody who's been on the call, who has joined, who's followed along over the years. It's super fun to do, and I get a blast out of this kind of work. I know Paul does too. And so just thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you, Paul. You're the best.
Congratulations, Jason. It's well deserved. I'll be here for 20,000.
I love it. We'll have that happen soon, hopefully. So Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. And Paul,